So, very warm welcome to the SGA Meetup, Improving Energy Efficiency Without Compromising the Player's Experience. My name is Maria Wagner, and I'm the Managing Director of the Sustainable Games Alliance. And for everyone who does not know the Sustainable Games Alliance, we are a nonprofit cooperative with the focus to decarbonize the games industry. The goal of today's meetup is basically to give you a concrete understanding, some guidelines on how to optimize your games across all gaming platforms. Then, of course, also with that, extending the lifetime of players' hardware, reducing their energy bills, more into detail from our speakers. So how do we do this? We first will have a presentation by Sophie Barteau. Then we have an input of Jiwon Jang. She is the Sustainability Project Manager at Microsoft Games. So after the insight of Jiwon, Jiri Kupiainen, who is the chair of the SGA and also an engineer, will ask a bunch of questions to get into the details of how to practically optimize. And then we have an open Q&A where everyone can ask questions. If you have questions in between, just drop them into the chat and we will ask them afterwards. Thank you so much for joining. And now I would hand over to Sophie.
So my name is Sophie and I'm a Sustainability Program Manager in Ubisoft for 4 years now. And I'm specifically in charge of the green IT and the eco design in our games. So which means working to reduce the environmental impact of our IT infrastructure and assets and the games themselves during the phase when our players are actively using them. So today, I have 10 minutes. I try to keep in the 10 minutes my presentation. So to walk you through our work on implementing the eco modes in one of our game, which is called For Honor. So I will go through what motivated us to develop it, the data and the result we've seen so far, and finally how we integrate it into the game experience. So it's quite new. It's experimental, but yeah, we try to do something. So the motivation behind that. So why we built the eco modes. In my view, we had 3 key motivations for developing the eco modes. So the most obvious one is the environmental impact. So when in the past we've conducted the carbon footprint assessment across the entire life cycle of a game, so from the development to the actual gameplay, we discovered that nearly 90% of the environmental impact occurs during the usage phase, so meaning when the players are playing the game. And only 10% comes from our internal operations. So if we really want to make a difference, our effort needs to be focused on reducing the impact during the gameplay. And that's exactly what the eco mode aims to do. So that was the first motivation. The second one, the second factor, which I call a competitive advantage, maybe is not the perfect terms, but is the growing presence of environmental regulation and consumer awareness, particularly in Europe. So we are a French company, even if we are worldwide. For example, we already see energy labels on washing machine, on cars, and many other consumer products. So I strongly believe that similar expectation will eventually be applied to the games as well. So we ask ourselves, do we want to be heads of the curve and lead the industry, or do we wait until we are forced to follow such a regulation? And finally, the last one, climate change is a reality and more players are environmentally aware. So by offering them feature like eco modes, we are not only doing our part, we are also creating an added value for those players, and we are very players centric. for the players who care about their carbon footprint. So it's a meaningful way for us to contribute while staying aligned with our commitments values. And of course, it will help our player to reduce that electricity bill. So who doesn't want to save money? So what we did with our game Forerunner. So maybe before driving into that, let me give you a quick overview of the game. So it's a live game, Forerunner, that had been running for 8 years now since launch. It's a PvP multiplayer game with up to 8 players per session. And it's a game is available on the new generation platform, but also remains backward compatible with other older consoles. It's a simulation-based game, which means, and this is important, which means it requires a lot of CPU processing. So we are CPU bound, meaning the CPU is usually the bottleneck in performance. However, the GPU load is much more flexible, which is precisely why we decided to focus our optimization effort on the GPU side. So we already had 2 existing graphic modes in the game, the performance mode and the quality mode. So the performance mode, this mode offers unlocked frame rates, 1080p resolution and low graphic details. The quality mode, this one is capped at 60 FPS, but delivers a 4K resolution and high graphic details. So the main difference between the low and the high graphic details lie in the elements like the shadow quality, the texture resolution, reflections, sky rendering, etc. But I will show you a picture afterwards. So our idea was to introduce a third option to that, which we call the eco mode. So where can we find potential gains in the game? So to begin with, we looked at a typical power consumption chart. So this is the table on the right. So of course, the power usage always depends on the type of application. But in our case, it quickly became clear that the GPU offered the most opportunities for optimization because it's where we have the most flexible with graphic settings. So to test that, so we wanted to get a concrete sense of how much energy our game consumes in the different scenarios. So we connected our dev kits to a watt meter, so manually, and measured the power consumption during various phases. So during the menu navigation, the actual gameplay, and also the idle screens. So we tested different combination of settings, including the resolution, so 4K, 1080p, and intermediate resolution, the frame rates, unlocked 60 FPS, 30 FPS, and the graphic quality. Then we created a matrix of permutation combining the settings to identify where the biggest power savings could be achieved. So kind of recipe. Finally, so of course, I'm not going to walk you through every single combination, but as you can imagine, we always aim to deliver the best possible quality and player experience. So this process was quite challenging. So it required a lot of balancing and trade-offs between performance, the visual, and the power consumption. For example, in our first test, we run the game at 720p, 30 FPS with low graphic settings. So it's the first row of the table. This setup gave us significant energy savings, so around 35 to 40% of savings, but it seriously degraded the gameplay experience. So clearly, it wasn't a viable option for us. Then we measure the power consumption of our existing modes, so performance quality modes, as reference points. And then we tested a new combination, which is the last row of the table. So 1080p resolution, 60 FPS, and high graphics. So this new option allowed us to save between 30 to 35% in energy. broken down approximately as 20% from reducing the resolution, 10% from capping the frame rates at 60 FPS, and 5% from tweaking graphic details. And that's how Eco Mode was born finally. So it was an optimized mode that balanced energy efficiency with satisfying the player experience at the same time. I have 2 minutes left. It's going to be good. So how we actually implement the Eco Mode in the game. So the preset itself is based entirely on our existing tech. So it's essentially a combination, as I mentioned, of our current settings. So the resolution, FPS, and the graphic quality. And then we created 4 levels of Eco Modes, depending on how aggressive we want to be and how aggressive the user want to be. So there is a minimal mode, so the minimal Eco Mode. So this Eco Mode is activated only in UI screens like the menus or when browsing options. So as soon as the player enters actual gameplay, the game switches back to performance or quality mode. So that's the minimal Eco Mode. The second one is the smart mode. So this one is context aware. So if the system detects players in activity for 2 minutes, the Eco Mode turns on, whether you're in the menus or in the game. And as soon as the player comes back, it automatically switches back to the standard mode with no disruption to the gameplay. And the last one, which is the full Eco Mode. So the Eco Mode is active all the time throughout the entire game experience. So doing that, we've also added a small Eco Mode icon. I don't have pictures, sorry, but a small Eco Mode icon on the corner of the screen during the game, but mainly in the menus, to make the players aware that the mode is active, the Eco Mode is active, but without being intrusive, of course. So maybe also about the implementation, to give you more about the scope. So this feature was developed by a group of internal, what I call the Eco Warriors, involved in the project. And it took just 2 months from the conception to the release, which is quite fast within a typical production cycle. This feature were first released as optional settings in April 2024 during the Earth Day. And since last month, so in March 2025, the Eco Mode is now enabled by default in the game. So it's the smart Eco Mode, which is now by default in the game. And it's very important because it means that the players has to turn off the Eco Mode if he doesn't want the Eco Mode. And it was the opposite last year. I don't know if it's going to work, but here is a small video. When we turn on the Eco Mode in the games, so we go in the settings and players can choose full, minimal, so it's quite easy for him. So it's quite difficult to see the difference. So to give you an idea, okay, to make things easier to visualize, so here is the side-by-side comparison. On the left, the Eco Mode is off. On the right, the Eco Mode is on. So you'll notice some visual difference. For example, the water reflection are more detailed on the left, and also on the character details, the grass and other visual elements. That said, the differences are subtle, if you can say that. And in fact, it's quite hard to notice unless you're playing on a 4K TV, for example. But there is some difference. So maybe to wrap up, and so lowering resolution and frame rates are the most immediate and effective way to reduce energy consumption. What's even more powerful is the implicit energy saving, like the smart eco mode that we've implemented, where players don't need to do anything. It's just activated automatically when needed. And the same goes when the eco mode is enabled by default. It has a real impact, effortless. We don't have a direct return on investment in business terms, I mean, but with the size of our player base, the environmental impact is significant for sure. The community reception has been very positive. We don't have any negative feedback from the player doing that. So that's also why we put it by default 1 month ago. And we've also received external recognition from the industry for this initiative. So we got some awards. And I truly hope this will inspire the other studios in the gaming world to explore similar ideas. Internally, we continue to explore that. We probably will implement such a things also in other games in the future. And I hope the other gaming company will also challenge us to go further in that direction. And that's all for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sophie.
Hi, everyone. My name is Jiwon. I am a sustainability project manager at Microsoft Gaming for Sustainability team. I work very closely with Daniel Jacobs, our wonderful senior software engineer in our team, / the driving force of the toolkit. But today I'm delivering this presentation during his absence. And with me, we have Neil Holmes, our fantastic senior technical program manager in the call as well, who's an expert in this area, actually, and he will also help answer any questions in the end as well. So I'm super excited to walk you through the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit, which is kind of set of tools and guidance designed to make developers' lives easier when improving energy efficiency without compromising the playing experience. Let's see if I can move my slide. Does this work? Okay, I'm working on a tiny screen here, so please bear with me. I know we're here to kind of dive into the toolkit, but please let me spend just a couple of minutes giving a little bit of context to how we got here. So as many of you may already know, Microsoft made some ambitious sustainability commitments for carbon, water, waste, and ecosystems, all to be achieved by 2030 to lessen our environmental impact. So one of these 4 goals are highly relevant to what we're trying to achieve with the Sustainability Toolkit. So by reducing our energy usage stemming from our games, we support the goal of being carbon negative organization by 2030. And we're investing a lot to achieve this across Xbox, and with all of our studios' help, we're getting closer. We have a huge list of studios who's already offered their talents to collaborate with us to kind of pioneer the sustainability in the games industry. And this is all done without impacting gameplay. So I spoke a bit about our corporate commitment, right, to why we're here. But let's take a look at what the real world sustainability impact this could be with a little scenario. So let's imagine you have a game that draws 0.35 kilowatt on average. I just put a random number, just number crunching. And a player plays 10 hours per week. And one user consumes 3.5 kilowatt hour weekly, right? So for a game with 80K weekly active users, that's over 14 million kilowatt hour per year. And using the global average emissions factor, that's close to 5,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent annually. And to compare, that's around roughly emissions over 12 million car miles, over 5 million pounds of coal burned, or carbon captured by over 5,000 acres of forest. And this is just to kind of visualize that small improvement in efficiency can make a huge difference at scale. So now here comes what we were all waiting for, the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit. So the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit was created to help developers embed sustainability into their games without compromising quality or gameplay. So just like turning off your TV at night saves energy, we can build sustainable engineering into a game to reduce unnecessary energy usage, and ideally imperceptibly to the players. And you might already know, but this is publicly available for everyone. So you can check it out on aka.ms/sustainability toolkit if you'd like to further read. But we're here for the convenience. So what is in the toolkit? So the toolkit contains like quite extensive information, but the highlights include three main components. So it's developer tools, measurement, and case studies. So the the developer tool consists with the performance investigator tool picks. So it's the go-to tool for anyone who signed a GDK agreement to publish content on Xbox. So as part of the GDK, additional content you can download. So this shows power consumptions of games in real time. We also have the game developer kit, so you can view and track your game's power consumption visually. And then we have the dynamic power state. Actually, Neil in this call, he's an expert in this. So this is when enabled, it adjusts the GPU's power dynamically based on workload with a single line of code. And we provide measurements and visual data like certification reports where average power use is compared to industry averages. So you can cross compare and see. And the partner center data tracking, they track real-time power consumption in your games. And also we can provide like custom carbon footprint calculations for your games based on any ad hoc requests. Last but certainly not least, we have the case studies. So real examples of studios who've implemented energy optimizations effectively. I just want to emphasize again, all of these tools are meant to empower developers like yourselves to take actionable steps. And the best part of this is that we're not doing this alone. So Xbox Sustainability Toolkit is truly for the developers, by the developers. And we have an amazing list of studios already pioneering these changes. And I just want to emphasize that together we can build like a more sustainable future for gaming. And I just want to showcase a few examples to bring it to life a little bit more. These are all case studies in the toolkit. So I made a little bit rough summary, but if you want to check it out, there's extensive information on the toolkit. So please go ahead and check it out. But first off, Mojang, I wonder if there's anybody from Mojang here today, but for Minecraft, they optimize how the game behaves when the game is paused or the player is idle. So I've actually saw this presentation being delivered by the engineers who led this project, but they noticed that even when systems encounter like gamepad disconnect screen, it still renders as if it's still being played. So they work together with Xbox Cert Lab with like setups and various FPS configurations to understand the impact. And they ultimately realized that dropping FPS when players are away will save energy. And through this, they improved the GPU efficiency and like reduced idle power usage, again, with no impact to the player experience. And I'll kind of show you like how it looks like later on. Next up, Infinity Ward, working on COD, Call of Duty, they have the DPS enabled. So the dynamic power state where you have a single line of code enabled. And they use the PIX tool to measure their energy usage. They also introduced something called eco mode, quite similar to what Sophie introduced, right? They have like minimal and full options, which adjust resolutions and frame rates during menus and pauses. So the result was actually incredible. It was up to 50% lower power consumption, and more than 90% of players adopted it without even realizing it. And this, like globally, resulted in a 3% reduction global average power consumption. And then finally, Epic Games. I wonder if there's anybody from Unreal here, but this was kind of like a collaboration with Unreal, as I understand. So Fortnite reduced CPU usage at idle, improving dynamic resolution scaling, like moving background processes and so on. And these improvements cut idle energy use up to 50% on consoles. And they have a really cool white paper on this that I also checked out. It's really cool. And what I wanted to showcase here is that all of these three examples show that small, smart changes, I'm not saying it's easy, but like small and smart changes can lead to massive environmental benefits. And players really don't lose anything they love about the game. And then as I promised, I'm just like showing you a couple of screenshots. So this is like a example from Minecraft. So the players can choose like in the settings menu to reduce frame per second when AFK. And then this is kind of frame per second being limited during AFK and when minimized and how the GPU load is being lowered. And then this is COD. One is full just regular mode, one is eco mode, and one is minimal mode. I personally can't detect the difference. We actually, this is, I think this is Modern Warfare, but during GDC, we had a demo station, and we showcased, I think that was Black Ops 6. I couldn't detect the difference personally. It's incredible to see because we showcased this to everyone during the mixer and they couldn't see the difference either. This is Fortnite. So one is 75% resolution, the other is 65. This also, I personally can't spot the difference. If you are a graphics engineer or like an artist, maybe you could. And if you stare at the game for a long time, I guess. I found it super cool how much impact this could deliver. I'm running out of time, so I'm gonna run through. But essentially, this is just the beginning. So the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit is continuously evolving. So we're adding more case studies, more tools, and more best practices all the time. So please stay tuned. And so this is all public resource, right? So like sharing the toolkit is really important for us in many reasons, but mostly because this enables more studios to take what's already been learned and apply it to their context. And also it enables us to increase visibility of these studios who's working hard to break ground. I feel like, especially in the space of sustainability, the impact doesn't really it doesn't necessarily always feel immediately tangible or visible. So I feel like celebrating success and sharing stories is so important. So we really encourage sharing. If there's anything that you've done in your studios, please share. We're in a team together here doing this. So a little bit of plug here again. I just love this slide. Nothing great is made alone. Here's the QR code to the toolkit. You can email us to xboxsustainability@microsoft.com. That email will come to me, Neil, Dan, everybody involved in the sustainability toolkit. And then I squeeze in one more slide, just a little bit call to action, so to say. So what can we do next? So if you're really in the beginning of this journey, just start measuring. So what gets measured gets managed, right? So start measuring. And you can talk to your development team to find out what's possible. And if you're publishing your game on Xbox, the DPS is a really low-hanging fruit. So enable DPS, and you can reach out to Neil for more information on this as well. And again, share us your case studies if you have any cool stories to share about energy efficiency. And please read through, give us a feedback on the toolkit. Is there anything to improve? Was there anything that was extra helpful? All of this will be helpful for us and for the industry as well. And that's it from my side.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thanks. Yeah, now we would switch over to the questions.
Cool. Yes. I'm in a hotel lobby in Riga, so hopefully my connection can manage this. Thank you so much, Sophie and Jiwon. Amazing presentations. I have a few questions kind of related to the stuff you were talking about. I might aim some of them at one of you first, but please don't hesitate to both jump in. So let's start with Sophie. You talked about kind of the benefits of eco design, and you talked about kind of maybe the brand benefits and how people can perceive this very well. You can get an advantage and whatnot. So that made me kind of think of like, where did the push come from originally? Like, was it for having an eco mode? Was it the eco warriors? Was it like internal to the team? Was it external? Was it the fans? Was it the management? Like, where did this come from?
Yeah, so the initial push for the eco mode mainly came from our team, so internally, not the top management, so most by the CSR team. the corporate social responsibility team, and the developers. Also, Xbox push us a lot also to explore this direction. So yeah, thank you Xbox for that. And as I mentioned earlier, when talking about our motivations, I really believe also that in the future, the strongest drivers will likely be incentive-based regulations, players' demand. Also, it will help also to drive such a project in our industry. And also potentially requirements from our first-party partners. For example, if they require us not to or require us, for example, a certain level of energy consumption in our games, it will also help us a lot to push that. But for the Eco Mode of Foreigner, it was internal warriors who push that internally. And for the future production also is the same. So I'm going through all the producers to push such a feature. It's not that easy, honestly, because you always have to demonstrate the benefits of doing that. But yeah, sometimes it depends on the people you have in front of you. But sometimes if they have this kind of climate awareness, it helps a lot. But there is no direction for our top management for now to do that.
Cool. No, I'm happy to hear that there's kind of this company to company pressure. It's cool that Jiwon, that you guys are pushing your partners to do better here. Do you have anything to add to that, Jiwon?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. So because it's really like a joint effort, right? So I think it's from my perspective, it was also very interesting to hear like more like a grassroots or bottom up approach in this. I think from our side, it was driven both by like internal and external factors. So like external factors including like companies like Ubisoft as well. It's more like we work jointly together in this. So like I think I mentioned in the beginning of like my part of the presentation, but internally like Xbox made like a sustainability a core company priority as part of like Microsoft's broader carbon reduction commitments. So externally, you know, Sophie mentioned in her portion of the presentation about like brand reputation as well, right? So like it's like player expectations or like industry trends, global environmental concerns, of course, also been contributing to this. Gamers are really increasingly aware of environmental issues, right? And there's growing expectations that gaming platforms and developers do their part to reduce impact. So it's really like a combination of like leadership inside Xbox, evolving expectations from our player community and society, and the games industry. And a little bit cheesy, but this is the right thing to do, right? For our players, the business and the planet. So yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Let me actually jump on that because before the main call started, we were talking a little bit about the kind of industry ethos of like always optimizing in order to just do more, and how I think a lot of people who make games kind of feel that optimizing to do less is kind of almost a sin, given where this industry comes from. But you're both kind of saying that actually, the community is really receptive to this, that the players actually are really happy to see us just like do slightly less with the graphics, if that actually makes it a better, more sustainable product. So what I wanted to ask about is like, how do you think about the kind of distinction between just regular optimization, then optimization specifically for kind of energy efficiency, and then finally eco modes? Like, is there like a different mindset? How should we think of these different kind of modes of optimizing your game? That's a tricky one, but please, Jiwon, if you can take that one.
I was wondering, it's like a more like technical depth. So I think like people will learn more from Neil, our technical program manager. I'm happy to answer that part as well. But Neil, if you can hop in
Yeah,
and
I can jump in.
yeah.
So I mean, they're kind of the same thing, really. So regular optimization, you're kind of focusing on performance, stability. You're looking to do things to kind of increase the user experience. So you're looking for ways that you can save a bit of time, so you can draw further or render more frames, or just increase the resolution that you're running at. All of those same optimizations that you would make in order to make those kind of improvements are the same kind of optimizations that you want to make to save energy usage. You just have to kind of mindset shift and think about like doing that, but then not actually consuming that additional power. And what does that mean? I think a lot of the time that we are talking about this sort of stuff, we are accepting that developers are trying to hit a certain target. They're trying to produce a game to a certain level of quality. And so a lot of the optimization work within the game itself is going to go towards creating that quality for the title. It's really where you can make those optimizations outside of that core gameplay loop, where you can see really big wins without impacting kind of what the overall vision is. So it's kind of that's really the only real difference between the two. But then eco modes, I think, is a great compromise. You kind of like you give the player the option to take advantage of all those great optimizations that you know you could do, but you don't necessarily want to have them there at kind of like the high level like version of the game that you're trying to create. But yeah, really anybody who's adept at doing regular optimization is going to be super good at doing the sort of optimization that you need for these energy saving modes as well.
Cool. I might actually, since I have you here, maybe jump on that a little bit more. Since you have all this amazing instrumentation that's part of the Xbox Sustainability Toolkit. Have you guys seen kind of this like direct measurement on console of energy usage, etc., like everything you kind of track? Do you see that translating to like other development opportunities? So is this also surfacing, bug fixes or engine optimizations or stuff that goes a bit broader than just efficiency?
Yeah, totally. So we see a lot of the kind of things that you spot when you're looking for energy usage impacting things like loading times and just frame rate in general. So because we track energy usage across updates of titles on Xbox, we can see like if you push an update to your game and like a particular part of the game starts to use a lot more energy, that's maybe something that the developer themselves hasn't noticed. So a good example would be like a loading screen is suddenly using twice the amount of power that it was in the previous version of the game, or a pause menu or something. Developers then go and work out why that is the case. I mean, typically you're doing a title update, you're probably not aiming to double the energy usage in a particular part of your game. It's probably a bug that you weren't aware of. Yeah, so we've seen that really help kind of like find issues that are kind of like adjacent to the actual the energy efficiency stuff that you're doing. And yeah, and a lot of the work that we do around helping titles optimize does lead to faster load times, smoother frame rates, and as somebody commented in the chat as well, less peaks and troughs in the frame rate, so you get a smoother overall frame rate experience. That's definitely something that's worth looking at the Fortnite white paper about, because that's something that they did, kind of smoothing out their frame rate also resulted in an energy saving overall for the title across kind of all platforms. So that's a really cool example.
Cool. Let me then maybe we're talking like we're a very PC console focused discussion right now. So let me try to zoom out and let's see if you guys have answers. So it feels like, I mean, still the majority of players are on mobile, and I would also imagine that on mobile, the kind of incentive, the player benefit of consuming less electricity is kind of very obvious. So I guess, are you aware of kind of like similar efforts that are specifically mobile focused? Do you see, this happening on outside of PC and console as well? Just curious to hear like your kind of industry point of view, Sophie and Jiwon, if you have anything to share.
Yeah, I mean, I could start. I mean,
Yep.
Definitely. I mean, personally, I would love to, that is one of the main drivers when I like battery efficiency when I download a mobile game, right? So I feel like mobile platforms definitely has a strong incentive to prioritize energy efficiency. It's so critical factor for the players, right? I think mobile space does have like some complexities that are a little bit different to PC and console. So like, the competitiveness of the mobile ecosystem and like, the device and OS manufacturers managing much of the energy optimizations. And from a sustainability standpoint, there's still like ambiguity around like where the responsibility for energy saving sits. Is it with the device maker? Is it with the OS or app developer? So there are like kind of complexities that are unique to mobile space, but because there is like such a strong incentives for the mobile platforms, I feel like there's definitely clear opportunities to apply these kind of energy saving practices, especially because like we do have a lot of learnings, like extensive learnings from console and PC. So like optimizing frame rates, for example, that could definitely be applied to mobile space as well. And we're like continuously researching, of course, because we do have like mobile titles, and like we're looking forward to heading towards that direction of extending the learnings and tools to support mobile platforms in the future as well. If any one of you in this call, if you are already doing that research, if you want to share case studies and anything like that, please reach out to join this journey, because it's always helpful if we share informations with each other. And this is something I feel like has a very, very clear business need as well going forward. I hope I answered your question properly here. But Sophie, like if you have anything from your standpoint with your long experience in the games industry, I think I would also love to learn.
Yeah, actually, I haven't explored the mobile yet, so we focus on the HD games because that's also where our biggest impact is for the moment. But for the mobile, in my point of view, there is also a very big business impact. So because it will help such an energy optimization as it has been mentioned before, it will help to keep the batteries longer. So it also means the players will play longer on your game. So there is probably also, it will bring more monetization for you also. So it's probably easier to bring such business arguments to the producer to make sure they will implement such new modes, such optimization in the mobile, but in the mobile platforms. But yeah, for now, it's not something we have explored internally.
Yeah, no, good answer, Douglas. I mean, it sounds like we should all have a pretty strong argument to take to the management teams. You can make more money if players can play longer, and we can see from PC and console that people actually like this stuff. They're happy if the game is more sustainable. Okay, last question from me. Now that we are all fully convinced that this is the way to go, when I go back to my game development team after this call, what's the one thing I can do that my team can do right away to reduce my game's power consumption? Sophie, what should I do?
So one thing I will do today to reduce my game's power consumption. So one quick win that I strongly recommend, and it's something I'm actively advocating internally for that, is to optimize the pause modes. So it's the equivalent of our smart eco mode that we push in Forerunner. So specifically when I'm talking about drastically reducing the frame rates, even down to 1 FPS, for example, when the player is inactive or when the game is paused. So it's quite easy to do. It's completely unnoticeable for the player. And honestly, it just makes sense. Today, many of our modern devices already behave this way. So it's not surprising that games, it's quite surprising that games haven't adopted yet already. So I'm quite confident with that kind of approach. I think it will be well received by the players, and it's low efforts with a very high impact chain. So it's really something that I push internally. Probably that the full eco mode as we did in Forerunner is too much for such players. It really depends of the game, really depends of the context. But working on this inactive mode yeah, it's probably one of the quick win we can do and implement easily in all the games.
Cool. Jiwon, do you have a tip?
I really want to add to that as well, Sophie. The very incredible point. I've actually added that as one of the points, I think. Just capping frame rate appropriately, like during, like menus or cutscenes or any other like lower intensity gameplay, not only the pause or idle. I think that would be quite easily achievable. I think one thing from my side, if you're publishing your game on Xbox, DPS, that's definitely the lowest hanging fruit, enabling DPS, because you could just enable that with a single line of code, and then the GPU power state will be like scaled back when it's not, fully utilized. But if you're not part of Xbox, and if you're in the very beginning of the journey, I think I mentioned in my last slide, what can you do next? Just start measuring. Start measuring your energy use in your testing processes. And again, like what gets measured gets managed. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you. I feel like I want to still also ask Niels, do you have any specific tools you might recommend, or anything kind of like on the technical front, like what should I install? What should I do now?
Yeah, I mean, the power meter approach is a really good idea. I mean, that will work on anything. Anything you can plug into the wall, you can put a power meter on it and measure stuff. Specifically, if you're on Xbox, the dev kits now by default have a power percentage on the front screen of the kit at all times. So you can always see how much you're using on the GPU. Pix, as well, as Jiwon mentioned, has a whole bunch of power measurement tools built in, so you can monitor power usage across frame rates and stuff. And then there's a whole bunch of other things you can do if you're publishing to Xbox as well. Take advantage of our sustainability reports for titles and things like that. We can provide really detailed information. And even in Partner Center, once your title's actually launched, you can now track all of the data for the energy consumption of your title as it's being played by players in the world. So you can see how many people are playing your game, where they're playing it, what the mix of renewables is versus carbon generating energy, and yeah, even the average cost of energy that the users are paying to play your game in the wild. So all that data is available through kind of our portals. So yeah. But yeah, if you publish it on Xbox, yeah, please turn on DPS. It really is just one line of code. It's super cool.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks everybody for the amazing answers. I think Maria, do we still have time?
Yeah, we have 8 minutes for the public Q&A. So guys, if you have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand or just speak up.
Yeah, thanks everyone for a great set of presentations and an interesting discussion afterwards. I don't necessarily come from the development world, but more from an academic one. So I guess my question is split between those, but I hope it can cross those lines. Maybe this is directed mainly to the Microsoft folks here, but it sounds like you have access to this really rich kind of data source that you make available for your developers that use your platform. Do you think there would be some value in making this public in more a sense that it doesn't kind of communicate business secrets or impact competitive advantages and such, but to allow for this like company to company pressure, as we were talking about, or comparisons, and seeing within your category or your kind of genre, how are other people performing and how that's happening in real time across the player base and titles and so on. I mean, from an academic point of view and getting more of an oversight, it's of course interesting, but maybe there's some added value for people who are actually in the gaming space are trying to work on this in a more pragmatic sense as well.
Yeah, I can take that. Maybe Jiwon's got some stuff as well. Sorry, just so you're on mute.
Go ahead, Neil.
I was going to say, so when we do the sustainability reporting as part of the certification process, when we report back power usage, we report back power usage from various different parts of your game. So we'll say like in the start menu, in the loading screen, during gameplay. And we also report that back against industry averages for the particular genre of game that you're doing. So if you're a first-person shooter, we'll give you kind of like the industry average power usage that we've seen and recorded ourselves. And we have very specific devices set up where we do that measurement, so we can make sure that it's accurate across kind of all the titles. And so we will share that with each individual developer. Like making it more publicly available is difficult. I think that would be a follow-up conversation maybe with Dan when he's back. If you want access to any of that data, what we can make available and what we can't. Because obviously a lot of the information contains like, you know, how many people are actually playing your game and things like that, which is kind of super sensitive to a lot of publishers. But yeah, where possible, we are trying to give developers that information so they know how they compare. I mean, it's one of those questions where like the amount of power you're using is not necessarily like a right or wrong type question answer. Like maybe you're intending to use twice as much power as your rival game in this category because you're doing something super interesting that is really pushing the GPU. And so your power usage is by design, and that's perfectly acceptable to be doing that sort of thing. So yeah, so we're trying to present this data in kind of a non-judgmental way. Like it's informational, it's up to the developer to kind of use it how they see fit.
So thank you so much, everyone, for joining. And of course, if you have any other further questions or inputs, please feel free to email us. We will connect you. And of course, if you want to see more of these meetups, just join the Sustainable Games Alliance, and also feel free to check out our website with the recordings of the former meetups. Just one note, because we talked a lot about measuring and knowing, like our footprint, but also like having some numbers to be able to optimize. The Sustainable Games Alliance is working on a global industry reporting standard to be able to have numbers and data to be able to reduce the emissions of the games industry. So yeah, check it out. And yeah, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
So much.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.